Why do men ghost? Because we feel like women cannot handle the truth most of the time.
In this conversation, we talk about why men cheat.
A man who wants to just sleep with a babe or just wants to have her in his life for a period of time, he doesn't want to marry her, but he wants to date her, he's not going to be vulnerable with that babe. He's only going to be vulnerable to the extent that she will allow him to get what he wants.
So this is a super transparent conversation with my friend Tito. We dive into a lot of deep answers about relationships and why men cheat or why men ghost. I hope you enjoyed this one, so grab coffee.
What have you seen as the absolute worst thing that creates unhealthy relationships?
The absolute worst thing? Wrong.
You have to just pick one thing.
A faulty foundation. People get into relationships for several reasons. Can get into relationship for companionship. Some people get into relationships for money. Some people get into relationships because they need somebody to talk to.
Is there any good reason or any bad reason? Are there not all good reasons in their own? Like if
their own right?
Yeah, I don't know all good reasons.
Some reasons, when you get into a relationship to exploit somebody, that's a bad reason. And I think that's, coming back to your initial question, I think that's why there are so many faulty relationships, because guys are, they want to get to this babe because they want to be physically intimate with her. It's her body. That's it. That's where he started from. That's where he's going to. And once he's gotten what he wants, he will leave. So that has been his intention from the get-go. That's his foundation. Some babes get into a relationship with a guy because he's driving a Benz, lives in a nice house, he can buy her things. That's her own foundation for getting. Sometimes these two people, these are their objectives. Body, money. They come together, they have fun, but when, the rubber hits the road and real life gets into the picture, and maybe the guy sees a babe with a better body, or the girl sees a guy that has two Benzes as opposed to this guy that also has one. Things like that. Then, that's when they won't know that is the foundation of the relationship that is the root cause. But they'll think, you are looking at other babes. Or, it's because I'm only giving you 50K a week. You are looking at this guy that can give you 350K a week or something. So, the foundation itself was rocky. So that's the main thing, I think, that leads to bad relationships that we see these days. People aren't aware of these things. Self-awareness is a very key thing. People really aren't aware of why are they getting into a relationship and what are they bringing into the life of the other person.
Before we had this conversation, Tito posted on Instagram asking people to send in questions they would like us to answer. This particular section is us getting into some of the questions from Instagram. This is where I think it gets interesting.
The first one we are going to take is why. I'm going to have some ideas. I'm going to have some personal answers to this question.
Feel free. So you contribute answers as well. Wonderful.
The first question is, why do some men put in effort to chase, and then after doing that, they go 360 and disappear?
They vanish and they ghost. Well, ghosting is another issue, but so why men, the thrill of the chase, as they call it. And you're a man like me, do you think there are some men that they just like the chase? Not necessarily women, but
I'm starting to hear it, and then I'm seeing that on the other hand, there seems to be some women who like being chased.
Yes, but after those women, after you catch them, do they lose interest?
I have no idea.
Okay, but coming back to men, I do believe there are certain men that they just like the excitement of trying to get a babe. Like, you this babe, hungry I be, I go catch you. You call her, you ask around about her. It's a bit of adventure. It's like a video game or something. And then once you now acquire, and she now says, oh yeah, I'm here. You're like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it again. And then you go and look for the next conquest or the next adventure. There are some men like that. They like bright and shiny things. So
I know. I feel like it's a culture thing. Here's why I feel like it's a culture thing.
Okay.
If a new restaurant opens in Lagos, Nigeria, that we live in,
okay,
everyone chases that.
Yeah.
And somehow we abandon the old restaurant. Maybe, I don't know. It's just a mentality thing. Maybe it's true. Maybe we do that with women as well.
We do, and it's kind of human nature. It's like how this happened to me this morning. It's like how there's food in the fridge, but you want to go and buy chickpeas We want to enter Burger King. This morning, as I was in my room preparing for my day, I knew I was coming to come and see you, but I also had a flag football game. There was a final today, which is where I'm coming from. So I was calculating that if I make... So going to bed last night, my plan is bread and egg for breakfast with Milo. And then I'll sleep again. I was working overnight, I was editing. I'll sleep, go for flag football, come and do Larry's interview. So when it was now time to come downstairs after showering to come and grab breakfast, I was like, I no go just go Burger King. Food day fridge. Last night when I went to bed, I decided that it's bread, egg, and Milo. But there's just something exciting about what's outside as opposed to what's at home. Same with many men when it comes to women. There's just a thrill of the one that you don't have, that's outside, that is appealing. So I don't know if I've answered the question.
I have a question from Instagram. Why do men like wickedness?
Maybe it's also tied to... You're laughing. Before I answer, do you think men like wickedness? Some men.
I don't even know what wickedness is.
Wickedness is a babe always like arguing with you, stressing you out, giving you cold shoulder, talking, just arguments, normal arguments, as opposed to a babe that's
personally, I've had one relationship.
Okay.
We argued. Not like we argued a lot. She just wanted to talk. She wanted to argue about everything. She wanted to, because she felt like...
Be careful, she might be watching.
I know, she's watching.
Okay.
She's watching. I know, but then she felt like it was, according to her, argument is normal for a relationship. I don't believe that. I'm like, let's have conversations. Let's talk about it. But we don't have to choose who is right or wrong. We can just choose that, we have two different perspectives and that's it. But then no, argument is good for a relationship. And I'm like...
it's kind of upbringing and our environment and culture. We live in it's a low trust environment and it's a very hostile environment. Arguing and hostility is part of our nature in this part of the world. So lots of people, they don't acknowledge that you can actually exist in a relationship or in a society where there doesn't need to be argument. There can be differences of opinions, but those differences are settled out in a very cordial, very civilized way. There are lots of people who it's very foreign to them. And there are lots of women, I do agree, that feel like that argument and that tension helps to build character, helps to define the relationship. I do agree that it's important to understand your argument style. When you and the young lady or you and your partner have disagreements, when you argue, how do they argue? Do they hear you first of all? Do they understand the problem statement? Or are they going off on a tangent? Do they shout? Do they throw things? Do they call? Do they use vulgar language? Do they insult? What's their style? That's one thing that when you are courting, especially when you're trying to courting or dating to marry, you need to try and investigate or figure that out. And it will happen eventually. You have a disagreement, and then it's up to you to see the words that this person is using as they're trying to get their point across to you. Are they avoidant? Do they storm out? Do they shout? And if these things do not agree with you, then it's now, yes, it's escalated. It's now, it may be a reason why you may need to end the relationship, or at least address it before you end the relationship. So I do agree, lots of women have that mindset that arguing and fighting builds character, helps the relationship. It's a very faulty mindset. It's because of the kind of environment we live in. And, it's maybe upbringing as well. Growing up in this part of the world, many of our parents didn't have the best kind of relationship between themselves, and we saw lots of things, and there are just lots of things behind it. So self-awareness is important for both parties.
All right, number 3 question. Why do men ghost?
Why do men ghost? Because we feel like women cannot handle the truth most of the time. I've ghosted in the past several times, and most of the time I felt, even till today, I have a hard time communicating my point across to women.
I agree. No, I agree. I just figured out. I just remember the time I ghosted someone recently.
Okay.
It was a date.
Okay.
A movie date.
Okay.
And it was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And after the date,
mm-hmm.
I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't do anything. I just disappeared. No, in my mind I was like,
why was the date bad?
No, I'm like, I can be the best. We can have the best date because I'll be my best self. I'll definitely be my best self.
Right.
But I'm not feeling it.
Okay.
And it felt like a what I ordered versus what I got situation.
Wow. Okay.
That was what I felt like. It was like, okay, so I knew I was going to disappear. But in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, we'll have a great time. Yeah. You love the movie, right? I know.
So
as we're leaving the cinema, we're done. And I didn't text, I didn't call, I didn't do that. Then like a week later, the person reached out to me and was like, what happened? Was it that bad? She wanted to know. I didn't even answer.
Do you feel what you did was right?
Of course I knew it was stupid and wrong.
So why did you do it?
You want me to tell her that she was what I ordered versus what I got?
You'd use better. You'd package it better. You'd say it in a better way. Because imagine if that was your sister. If that happened to your sister.
I felt bad. I felt bad. That's why I'm like, why do men ghost?
Yeah, well, I mean, women, I feel like women can't, most of the time, or sometimes, and some women, I need to qualify it, can't really handle the truth. But I think everyone deserves the truth, especially when they reach out to ask, the way the lady did. You know, and even if, I think it's one thing to, it's fair if they are not feeling it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could have communicated and then gradually.
We seem terrible at communicating in this part of the world.
Come again?
We seem terrible at communicating in this part of the world.
Yes, which is, well, there's that, but it can also be an individual thing. It may be something you need to work on.
All right, so before we go on, I'm just going to ask the two people who are behind the camera for us, Victoria and Adana, if they have a question, and they would push that in. This is a behind-the-scene question. Behind the scene, Adana just asked, what does vulnerability mean to you? As a guy.
As a guy, vulnerability is being able to open up to somebody that you want to have a relationship with. It doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship. Vulnerability in a relationship, a romantic relationship context would be telling the person what your intentions are for them. The reason why you are dating, the reason why you are talking to them. Especially if the lady asks me now, like, okay, so why are you talking to me? What are we doing here? I like you. I'm looking to be in a relationship, a committed, meaningful relationship. I think you have a good head on your shoulders. I like the way you reason. I like the way you operate. And I'd like to see where this goes.
Do you think most men are capable of being completely vulnerable?
They are. Everyone is capable of, we have the capacity. Whether or not we access that capacity is a different story. And it comes back down to intention. A man who wants to just sleep with a babe or just wants to have her in his life for a period of time, he doesn't want to marry her, but he wants to date her, he's not going to be vulnerable with that babe. He's only going to be vulnerable to the extent that she will allow him to get what he wants. So, like, if he wants to sleep with her now, he will open up just to the amount where she'll feel comfortable enough to give him what he wants.
So if I'm vulnerable enough to marry someone, and I'm married, why then do men cheat?
Why do men cheat? If
they, like you are married, you are very vulnerable. You found someone you are vulnerable with, and so what then makes people move on to still cheat?
Still cheat. There are several reasons why people cheat. It's not just men that cheat; women cheat as well. Even if you are being vulnerable in your courtship and your marriage, a person can still cheat because maybe things change. Maybe their needs are not being met. Maybe they've lacked self-discipline all the while. You can be vulnerable with multiple people. I can be vulnerable with my wife, I can be vulnerable with 5 side chicks. But, I'm getting what I want. Vulnerability is not the cure for infidelity and adultery. That one is its own problem on its own, which can stem from different things and which has different solutions. But yeah, I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah.
Vulnerability doesn't solve infidelity.
So this question from behind the scene is for when men have financial issues, especially like when you are, according to the person that asked this question, you know how a lot of men say they don't like materialistic women, but then when men have financial issues, there seem to be terrible partners in those situations. How would a woman handle that, or how would the man like a woman to handle that kind of situation?
how the man
Yeah.
like a
Like
woman
how,
to handle him
yeah, in that. How do you want the woman to be there
support
for you?
in that situation. I think, well, the root of that particular issue is that as men, particularly in this part of the world, money is very strongly tied to our identity because of that ability to provide.
Yeah.
Lots of people, not just women, but even society feels like you're not a man if you can't provide. And if you are not earning well, and you can't pay certain bills, it makes us feel like less of a man. So we're frustrated. We feel like we're about to be exposed. That that we're not men. We're not doing what we're meant to do. The main thing that we're meant to do, we can't do. So that's the insecurity. Now, when you're in a relationship or you're married and that happens, it's uncomfortable. It's embarrassing. And with things that are embarrassing, you tend to want to hide them or conceal them. So if you are not vulnerable with your wife, if you are not open with your wife or your spouse, it's even harder to deal with that kind of thing. So when going into the courtship and the marriage, that's why that
I think
openness
that
and vulnerability
even when
is
you are
very
even married,
important.
like when what
That
if
is really
you
an
are
issue,
even
Abi.
dating self?
Come again, it's
Like,
more of an issue when you're dating
Even
when
when
you're
you are
married.
dating, like I'm
And you
thinking
don't have
about
money.
it when you are dating, when you are not even married. I feel
And
like
you
it's
have-
even harder when you are dating.
I disagree because the bills when you're dating are different from the bills when you're married.
Agreed.
So you mean there's rent, there's chop money, school fees, so many things that are affected by your income. If you are dating and you lose your job or money isn't coming in, bata are not going to eat at where we go and eat every weekend. Unless you are willing to foot the bill this time around. But how women, to come back to the question, how women can support in that situation, first of all, before I answer that, foundation, openness and vulnerability. There needs to be a foundation that when I'm feeling down, I can feel comfortable to let you know. I'll still feel bad though, but at least I've opened up to you. The problem many men have is that they don't even open up to the woman how the financial thing is really doing them gong. I've lost my job.
Because
I've lost my job and I have 10 million naira debts.
There's a shame attached to it.
There's a shame attached to it. But you need to be able to have that conversation because when you go to the doctor, is what you tell the doctor or what the doctor sees from you that they work on to cure you. So unless the woman knows or your partner knows, they don't know how to support you.
Is there no cultural underlying, like, for instance, the culture already means men provide. So if men feel like they are not providing, they feel like women will not understand. I'm already disadvantaged and I can't provide. So that wouldn't make sense. So why am I coming to? What am I in demand for? Don't you think so?
So there is a marriage from cultures, from society's perspective. There's what a lot of people don't understand about marriage is that people that are married, they have their own constitution. They are not married by society's terms. There are people that financially they are doing 50-50 in their marriage. There are some people who is 100-0, some people is 75-20 financially. They are different. Everybody has their own constitution in their house. That's what a lot of people don't know. So this money thing now, it comes foundation. Are you married to the kind of person? Have you guys talked about this money issue? Are you guys open? There's so many things to talk about when dating, and which is another thing people don't realize. Paint scenarios. I lose my job or this contract doesn't click. What will you do in that situation? If you are pregnant or if you are working or if you have a better job than me, how will you come in? It's a question. And dating is very much like interviewing. So, she can tell you, you say, God forbid, you will always provide. That will never, red flag, madam. You tell her, but red flag. But a mature, understanding woman who understands that life is in phases and stages and things happen, there are ups and downs, ask anybody. She will say, we'll figure it out. We'll plan towards it, we'll build our savings, I will support you. So far, you tell me what's going on, and then I'll help you look for a job. We read books, we hear stories about, how women try and sort their husbands out after they lose their job. In the moment, it may be a big deal, but after he gets the job and money starts coming in, who cares? Who cares? These are the issues. So we really need to stop looking at society, and people in their marriages need to define the constitution, the manifesto for themselves and how they operate, and run with that and close out society and culture and all that stuff.
So if you're having that kind of challenge, how would you like your woman to help?
So the financial issue challenge, if I had that kind of situation, I would like my woman, I'd feel bad though. And has it happened? I don't know, I can't really remember now how money has really played a part in my past relationships. But if that were to happen in a relationship, particularly in a marriage, because there's a limit to which money plays a role in a relationship for me. But in a marriage, if I were to lose my job or money wasn't coming in, or like in 2020, because you and I are pretty much in the same industry, we are videographers and photographers, 2020 was we were all at home, weren't really earning money. Thank God for YouTube and YouTube income. But that even came later on. But if it was like a 2020 situation and I'm not earning money and I'm married and my wife is working, I would like her to understand, I'm still going to feel crummy, I'm going to feel bad, I'm going to be sulking around the house, but I will make sure she knows why I'm sulking. Money hasn't been coming in. I'm worried about rent. I'm worried about chop money. I'm worried about, that's why I'm feeling somehow. And that will also show up in how I relate with her in the bedroom and whatnot. So I need to let her know. I can't assume that she knows.
Yeah.
I need to let her know. And once she knows, you know. So when you see me and I'm just sitting by the window, I'm looking outside, sometimes just rub my back and go. Sometimes, want to talk about it? No, dear, I'm fine. And go. Sometimes, dear, don't worry. I heard, that this company is recruiting. Or I heard this, I heard that. Small things here and there. Sometimes, it may be a long conversation. We may talk. But there are times, particularly for us men, where you just need to leave us alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are those times as well. So I will need to. I was going to say, it's a men and women thing. Men like to be handled in a certain way. Women like to be handled in a certain way as well. Some women, too, when they are having that time of the month, there are certain ways they like us to handle them. Us too, when money is not coming in, there are certain ways we like them to handle us. So everybody get their own. So I will let her know. And it's not just one conversation, it has to be several conversations sometimes. Because with relationships, you don't just say something once and expect the person to catch it. Sometimes you need to reiterate. So what I would do in that, to sum it all up, is I would let her know what's doing me and how she can support me in that time. And bearing in mind that this is for a season, eventually things will get better. But for the meantime, she may need to step up on one or two things. If after all, it's a partnership, according to the constitution of our marriage. Forget outside, it's a partnership. You may need to step in, because who knows? Tomorrow now, maybe the table may turn and all that, or I may be working, maybe pregnant, whatever. So we need to have that conversation, and she needs to know how to support me. I would let her know how she can support me, and we both need to bear in mind that this will not last forever. It's for a season. This too shall pass.
So thank you so much, Tito. My biggest takeaway from this conversation is the fact that you have to focus on yourself as a couple and being vulnerable to each other and creating your own constitution that works for both of you. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's super important.
It is.
Sometimes we think about relationship and we think about every other person outside us or every other thing that is happening outside us. And sometimes you just sit down with your partner and focus on you guys.
Yeah.
And it also means for the guys as well wanting to have that conversation, because I think a lot of women would like to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But it can be a tough place for a lot of guys as well.
Yeah. That vulnerability. It's not easy for men to be vulnerable. Yeah. Because when we're vulnerable with women, anyway, that's another conversation.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm going to leave a link to Tito's YouTube channel.
Yes,
because he has an amazing channel where he talks about a lot about movies in Nigeria, movie reviews, and relationships a lot.
Yeah. And money too on another channel
as well. So great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
It was amazing.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I am leaving links in the description to Tito's YouTube channels and his Instagram profile. He's such an amazing guy, and he shares about relationship and reviews a ton of Nollywood movies and blockbusters on his channels. So check him out, and I will see you in another video. Bye.